I can shut my volume off on this thing for shutting that down.
Okay. We are on now, and actually this is take two. My bad, I didn't have the record button on correctly, but I am interviewing Michael Bosco at Curry College, and now I'm going to get the title right. The Assistant Vice President for Academic Affairs.
Correct.
And I was stating in my first take, which didn't take, I stated that I was actually on the search committee which chose to bring Michael on board here at Curry, and because he had I saw some really good qualities of leadership, and teaching this online leadership course, I asked Michael if he'd be kind enough to share some of his leadership attributes with this particular class. So on that note, Michael, if you don't mind briefly again, how you started your career and how you got to where you are now.
Sure. When I was in my undergraduate days, I went to Johnson & Wales University down in Providence, Rhode Island. I was in the business management program at that institution, and really didn't think that I would end up working in higher education as I started that program. My leadership on campus in a student organization capacity is really what got me involved. I joined student government. I thought that would be a good way to get involved on campus. I was also part of Future Business Leaders of America, and that actually led to my first job in higher ed, working in the admissions office at that institution. After I graduated, I continued working at that institution in the marketing department for university admissions, so marketing all of the different campuses across the country to prospective students. Did that for about a year and a half, and decided that I wanted to have more direct contact with students, and I wasn't getting that in my role at the university. And moved on to a mid-level management position at Mount Ida College over in Newton as the operations manager for the enrollment management and marketing division. I made the choice to go to a smaller institution because I knew I would be able to try a lot of different things.
Wear a lot of hats, yeah.
It was important for me not to be pigeonholed. When I was at Johnson & Wales, it was a big university. You're kind of in one area, you have one kind of hat you wear on a day-to-day basis. Mine with marketing office was a lot of direct mail marketing. A lot of that has kind of gone away now over the past decade with online and email. So that job is very, very different now than what it would have been when I was there. But trying out a lot of different things to find out what my niche was going to be in higher ed was important to me. I was there for about 5 years. After that, moved on to another smaller institution, Benjamin Franklin Institute of Technology, because I was able to take the next step up and get a higher position. I went there as a dean.
Oh, what year was that?
That was in 2010. So I graduated college in 2003, and I was the dean of an admissions office by 2010.
2010.
So pretty rapid escalation for...
No, that was with your master's?
In the meantime, I had gotten my master's degree here at Curry College, actually, in the education program.
Wow.
And at Benjamin Franklin, did a lot of different things. That was a tiny school, 500 students, got to know a lot of the students pretty intimately. I was also a member of the senior staff, so I reported directly to the president, was at Board of Trustees meetings, making a lot of administrative decisions. Got to be really involved.
Right.
Some internal happenings there occurred. So there was some position shuffling. I took over student affairs there as well. So I was managing enrollment management and student affairs at one point, and then was given the choice: do you want admissions or do you want student affairs? And I said I would much rather help students be successful and graduate. So I stayed on the student affairs side.
Cool.
That led me to this position here at Curry, and a lot of opportunity based on my experience at Benjamin Franklin. Being able to have the experience in so many different areas of the college really positioned me well for the position I'm here now.
Wonderful. Tell me a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about what you do with your position here now. And then, if you will, I'd like to talk a little bit about vision, passion, and where do you see Curry going from a leadership standpoint going forward? So let's talk about what you do here now first at Curry.
Sure. In my role, I oversee a couple of different administrative departments. I oversee the registrar's office as well as the Center for Career Development. I spend a lot of my time helping build the infrastructure for the college's study abroad programs. That's really increasing right now. We send about 50 students out over the course of the year. My hope is to double that in the next couple of years, to get to 100 students every year going out on different types of study abroad programs, whether it's short term with a faculty member leading a trip, or semester long programs where students actually take their courses in Italy or France or England as examples. I also work out of the provost's office on helping support some of the faculty searches that happen. So when we bring on new faculty members as a liaison from the provost's office, I've done that on several of the searches thus far this year. I anticipate that continuing. So a lot of different kinds of responsibilities and bouncing from one type of mindset to another, which is you got to be fluid in these types of leadership roles to be able to navigate.
Oh, it's a
everything that's
lot
happening.
to here again, looking at a whole bunch of stuff. And here again, this is just an observation on my part. And I'm not saying this to embarrass you in any way, but I'm saying this because I was impressed by it. When I went to faculty meetings, I'm looking at everybody sitting up at the front, and I didn't see Michael. And I'm saying, I know he's got to be here somewhere. And then I turn around and I look back, and as I'm walking out, he's not sitting up in the front, he's sitting more toward the middle or in the back. And what came to my mind was servant leadership. And I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit about that. The difference between, was one of the things that teaching leadership that I find very intriguing, is that there is a definite distinction between a leader and just a manager, someone that holds a position on a hierarchical structure. And I was just kind of wondering if you'd be kind enough to share some of that servant leadership perspective.
Sure.
My observation.
Servant leadership is, I think every good leader has that as their mantra. There's a lot of different leadership styles. I kind of fall into the servant leadership role more naturally than others, I think. I tell my staff on some days I'm going to be the leader and telling you what to do, but there's other days where you have to be the leader, and it's my job to get out of your way and for you to tell me what you need me to do in order to make your job easier and to be able to be accomplished. One of the things I tell people is, you don't work for me, you work with me, because we're all in here with a shared vision and a shared collective goal. Our goal is to provide students with a great experience here at Curry College. And the titles don't always matter. It's the work at hand, and it's how we get there together to the end point.
So it's really about accomplishing the goals, not more the person. For example, how many times do we hear out there, well, I want to do things to please my boss. I want to make my boss look good, so I'll look good. You hear those types of cliches out there.
I think that comes naturally, though.
And
if you do your job well and you're going toward that agreed upon goal that everybody has, Curry has a strategic plan. We know what the goals are. If we're all working together, everybody's going to look good. So you're going to make your boss look good, you're going to look good in the process, and you're going to be delivering a good product for your students that are actually your customers and clients.
Shared vision. Okay. A lot of times leaders can't get subordinates to really see what they see. I mean, one thing is you can manipulate, you can say, okay, you better get it or else, the autocratic way, if you will, information just flowing from the top down. And then there's another way to do it. How do you do the other way? I know you mentioned shared vision, but how do you actually get it?
It's communication. It's bringing people in from the onset. If you go to a meeting and you hear something that may impact somebody else on campus, have a conversation with them about it. Talk to them, get their feedback, because they may bring things in a different perspective that you have no idea they're thinking about. And it could either advance something more rapidly, or it could say, this is a really bad idea because of A, B, or C. Or, we could do it, but we'd have to change C, D, or E. So it's really getting people in at the ground level. If you go back to people and tell them at the end, that's when you're more likely to have resistance, because people weren't with you along the journey to get to that.
And they're caught with not really knowing. And I think that's probably, there's many successes in leadership, but I think one of the biggest failures in leadership is when your crew doesn't get it and you are so tuned to your own agenda that you fail to see what they're not getting. And there's frustration, lack of morale, blah, 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 what follows. So the idea is, how as leaders do we keep on top of TQM? How do we checkpoint without infringing, if you will, on those subordinates that report to us? And as you say, giving them the autonomy to be innovative. Talk a little bit about innovation.
Yeah. I think it's more important as a leader to ask questions than give directives. So if you know that you're thinking about doing something, ask people for their feedback. Say, here's what I'm thinking. What are your thoughts? That will help you move your own opinion in either direction, whether it's good or bad. I find that if you go into a situation with your mind made up from the get-go, that's when you can get into a lot of trouble. If people don't understand...
Close-minded, if you will.
If you're close-minded.
Right.
People will not necessarily buy into your vision. There are leaders that have been extraordinarily successful with a closed-minded vision, so it's not bad in every sense. Sometimes you got to think about the type of industry you're in as well. So higher education is a very collaborative industry. There's shared governance processes in place. You need to bring people on board. If this was a company where we were making widgets, that might be a totally different type of leadership style that would need to be imposed. And that's why I'm not working in one of those environments. I work at a place that likes that collaboration and shared vision.
I'm not going to keep you too much longer, but there's one other thing I just want to bring you up to date with. I interviewed most recently the new general manager at Elite Health and Fitness, where I belong, and I also interviewed the person that trained him for successful leadership. And I'm thinking that what I might be doing is sharing those types of interviews with the person that, who trained this new general manager, interviewing her last year. And last year I interviewed the provost, Dr. Sabaki, and I'm seeing a lot of similarities with successorship here. What do you see in Dave that might complement your particular types of beliefs about leadership?
Dave has a great sense of humor. I think that is something you have to have in a leadership role. To be able to connect with people. We're in a people business. We don't have a product, tangible product. You can't pick up something and say this is what we sell. It's a human capital driven business. So you have to be able to connect with people on a personal level. Sure. I think he has the ability to do that, and he does it really well. I think I tend to do that pretty well as well. So there's some similarity in that sense. I also think that Dave is a pretty smart guy and knows the higher education business. He's been provost at a couple of different institutions prior to coming to Curry. He was a college president, so he has the understanding of the overarching umbrella of the institution and what all of the different parts are that make up the college and how they impact one another, which I think is important. Just because of my prior experience of being at a smaller institution, I understand those things too. So
the dynamics, right?
Dynamics and the similarities into, what admissions does impacts what happens with student success, and vice versa. What academic affairs does could impact institutional advancement. It could impact admissions. It could impact student success. So there's a lot of different moving parts here that play together, and having an understanding of how one impacts the other is really critical to this institution being successful. That's
really great. Thank you so much for your time today.
Sure.
I really look forward to working with you, and I think that's one of the many things that I've admired since you've come on board here. Is I noticed that rather than being the locomotive, a lot of times we don't realize that it's the caboose where all the resources are that drive that locomotive.
Right.
So thank you and happy holidays.
Have a good one.
You too.